Hey everybody, welcome back to the Grad-Centric Podcast. Today we're going to talk about non-traditional approaches to college. And when I talk non-traditional, I'm really putting that in opposition to this idea of a traditional experience to college. And what is the traditional experience? The traditional experience is a high school student going off right after high school to a college, living on campus for 4 or even 5 years now, and getting an undergraduate degree in whatever that is, business, engineering, social work, what have you. That's the traditional experience that's been in the American understanding and in our minds for a very long time. So the question here is, do non-traditional approaches pay off? And even the kind of twin question to that would be, does the traditional approach still pay off? We've talked about in previous episodes about how the cost of college education is rising rapidly, even quicker than the economy as a whole and the service sector as a whole. So this huge sticker price that's attached to college nowadays, and specifically attached to that traditional college experience, may not have the ROI that it once had. So many families are now directing their attention towards non-traditional approaches, and we've already talked about many of them throughout the episodes so far. Things like work colleges, having an employer pay for your way through school, taking a gap year, looking at a number of non-traditional programs or educational opportunities like boot camps. Another opportunity here is if you've already graduated or you're just out in the workforce and wanting to reskill, there are things called MOOCs, massive open online courses that offer free training or highly subsidized online training. So all these different ways to compile what is an undergraduate degree or even a master's degree and do it for substantially less costs. Because when I talk to families and when I think about college personally, I always think of it in terms of the income side and the cost side. So on the income side, of course, you want more scholarships. You want the opportunity to get income from the government or loans from the government, grants, scholarships, etc. That's the income side. But there's also the cost side, which many families nowadays with the high cost of college can't ignore anymore. And really the number one and the number two drivers of college costs today are living on campus and tuition itself. And so how do we change those two things? Well, living on campus, we find cheaper arrangements or we live at home. And then the tuition side of this is we go to a cheaper school. And really one of the things that is becoming more popular, and even some states subsidize this through grants and scholarships, is this idea of a 2-year to 4-year transfer. Now I do want to tell families when it comes to going to a 2-year school and transferring to a 4-year school, a lot of times we want to take a pause and make sure that we're not penalizing ourselves by taking that route, because freshman scholarships tend to be very lucrative for that traditional pathway. And if you go to a 2-year school and then you want to transfer out, those transfer scholarships tend to not be as lucrative. And so you really have to do kind of a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that going the 2-year to 4-year path is a good fit. Even for states like Missouri, I'm right by Missouri, I live in Kansas, but do a lot of work in Missouri, and they have what's called the A+ program, which makes that first 2-year experience at a community college near free, right? Except for books and some other expenses. So there are great opportunities from the non-traditionalist side. The other piece that I would say is some of these 2-year technical degrees don't even need to lead to a 4-year degree. Of course, that's great if it does, but many technical occupations are demanding very good salaries right now because there's not enough workers to fill these jobs. And so again, when I hear a family say that my kid isn't college material or they're on a different path or what have you, one, I like to question what that means really. And then two, also thinking about some of these pathways that may not be that traditional 4-year experience, but certainly have an incredible return on investment. So that's a little about non-traditional college experiences. And again, already talked about many of those, but wanted to bring this back on the radar because when we look at the income side and we look at the cost side, these non-traditional approaches are becoming a lot more popular for families, and rightfully so. All right, we'll see you on the next episode for personality assessments.